So recently we've just had the new trailer for the Final Fantasy VII Remake unleashed upon us, and one of the things that's excited me most about the game based on this trailer is actually the enemy design. This has caught me off guard actually, because it's not something I would have thought of before going into the trailer, but it seems that the designers, the developers and the artists are really trying to remain faithful to the original game with these designs. Now, we did get another look at the Guard Scorpion, though we have already known for the last few years how this was going to be designed because we've seen it in previous media, videos, etc. But it's great to see its presence still here in the trailer. It looks like it's going to have quite a substantial role in the game as well. You can see it in a battered up form here, which is a pretty good sight to see, I've got to say. But also, let's take a look at some of the other creatures that we've managed to get a glimpse of during this particular trailer. First off then, we can see the standard Xinhua Soldiers. So these guys, I'd imagine, will be present throughout much of the first part of the game, or indeed the first game, since it's been split over multiple games apparently. And these are known as the MPs in the original game. They come in a blue uniform, though they do have various varieties of different skins and textures as well, so I'm sure that will be the case in the remake. They have an interesting design. They got these three red lasers. I'm not sure if they signify anything or not, but overall, yeah, they're pretty faithful to the original, I'd say. If we just go ahead, we have seen the Guard Scorpion already, but still, you know, as I say, looks very awesome. These guys, I think these, you can see them over here. I'm not sure if there's an actual correlation to the original game, but I believe these might be flying variants of the machine gun enemies that you fight against as you're making your way through to the second reactor, and indeed during the second reactor. So maybe these spawn with those guys, or maybe they just take off the ground and start flying around. But obviously there's some kind of security system that Shinra is utilising to fight off against those that would dare to enter their reactors. People like Avalanche perhaps. And here we have another form of the Xinhua Soldier as well, and we can see one of those creatures that fires the machine gun appears to be grounded over here as well. So I'm not sure if there's an exact enemy that this is represented from the original game, but obviously it's certainly within the style of what Shinra would use. Just skip ahead of this bit for now. This is it. By far my favourite enemy, and indeed perhaps my favourite part of the new trailer, is our first look at Apps here. This is the sewer boss, of course, from the original game, and he looks absolutely sensational. I'm trying to just get a shot before he comes, that's it, before he comes too close to the screen there. This guy is incredible, and I tell you what, he looks ferocious. I'm already scared about facing off against this guy during the game. And the designers, as I mentioned at the start, have perfectly captured the design and feel of the original, especially with his tongue. Why would you want a tongue like that when you lurk about in the sewers? I really do not know, but obviously Apps is a failed experiment of Hojo's, and he's not particularly impressed by the looks of things of being thrust down with everybody's poo. So yeah, he's going to be pretty angry, and we of course are going to have to cleanse him of that. So yeah, I really, as I say, enjoyed this part of the trailer, and I cannot wait to see not only more of Apps here, but if he's going to be the staple of the type of enemy and creature design we can expect in Final Fantasy VII Remake, then I'm looking forward to seeing what we're getting next as well. This here is the Sahigran, I think it's called. It's like a turtle enemy. Once again, I believe this is fought in the sewers, and we can only really get a little bit of a glimpse here. Maybe that's a bit of a better shot, but again, this is a really good representation of what it is that we got in Final Fantasy VII. And I just want to emphasise again that the designers are really, really remaining faithful to the original game, and I'm happy about that. Another one of my favourites, perhaps my second favourite after Apps, is the Custom Sweeper here. So this was quite a staple enemy in the original game. You meet it quite early on during your trek through the first reactor on the way to blow it up. And they're quite challenging in the original game, though they are, of course, weak to lightning magic. And I'm hoping that's going to be the case here as well. But this thing looks imposing. This thing looks like it means business. It is massive, this thing. It's bigger than it was in the original game, and it was big there as well. So, facing off against this thing, I suspect, is going to be an event in and of itself. Maybe this isn't a boss version, but I reckon that these battles are going to be quite intense. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how combat plays out, of course, as we go forward over the coming months and learning more about that. But yeah, I'm very, very impressed with this design. It looks so mean, doesn't it? Right, now here we have an enemy which I'm not particularly familiar with. We can't really get a good glimpse of it's the problem, because the screen goes blurry because it's moving frames. That's probably about the best shot I'm going to be able to show you. So at first I thought this looked like an enemy known as the Frozen Nail. But that is an enemy in the original game which only really appears later on in the adventure during the snowy parts of the map. And obviously this is still going to be occurring towards the start of the game during the initial reactor explorations. So I don't think it's that. A couple of people have noted in the comment section of my previous breakdown that it might have been an enemy known as the Grass Trike. Quite a strange name, and I can see where they're coming from. It does bear some similarities to that, but I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Is this a new enemy, or is this just a radical redesign of the Grass Trike from the original game? Either way, it looks awesome, and it does have that kind of long, slender body. You can't quite see clearly here, as I say, especially because the lighting's mostly focused on the front here. But it does seem to have this long tail, which perhaps indicates it is that enemy. Or, as I say, maybe it's something new altogether. And then we get another awesome look at the Guard Scorpion.
Can you bear to see the...
And I think that's about it. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we did get a glimpse there at about 4 or 5 new enemies. Well, new enemies as in new to the remake. Obviously, we're talking about them in the context of the original game. But based on the fact that it seems the designers are recreating those original enemies, it's got me thinking as to what it is I'm looking forward to seeing in the remake. And I've got a few examples for you here that I'm really interested and intrigued by how they're going to be implemented. Now, this isn't an entire list of everything I want to see, of course. It's just a few things I've picked out just to remind us, really, of the type of enemy design that Final Fantasy VII gave us. So up at the top left here we have Lost Number, one of my favourite bosses actually from the game, and quite underestimated for many people that decide to visit the Nibelheim Mansion and recruit Vincent later on in the game. If you tackle this guy when he first becomes available, he is very, very challenging. And the fact that he likes to transform and morph into either of his two sides is something that I really think they can play on in the remake. I want to see this guy become part of a big event in the mansion. I want him to see, be chasing us around and swapping between his two forms so that we have to switch strategies as to how we fight him. I think it could be quite a creepy design. He is one of Hojo's experiments after all, and he's one I'm definitely looking forward to seeing realised in the HD remake. Moving away from bosses for a moment, we can see the Hell House here in the top middle of the screen. And this is one of the regular enemies that I'm really looking forward to seeing realised in the remake. It's a very, very bizarre enemy, isn't it? Even in the original game. What's it all about? I literally have no idea. But to see this thing created in HD as we're making our way through to Wall Market, which is when it's basically encountered, is something I'm very much looking forward to. This is another transforming enemy. When you first fight it, it looks like an ordinary house, and then later on during the encounter it starts sprouting all these arms and appendages and various body parts. It's very bizarre. And talking of bizarre, we have the unknown enemies, which you can see an example of on the top right of the screen. These are generally encountered in the Crash Submarine later on in the adventure, and they're quite challenging, but they're also very, very spooky, aren't they? They just look like something out of some kind of alien or horror movie. And done well, done right in the remake, these guys are going to scare the living pants off us as we play through the game. You can be sure of that. And then down at the bottom left we have Hojo. And the reason I've included him is not only is he an integral part of the story of Final Fantasy VII, but the boss battle when we fight against him is one that is also quite of a unique experience. He's a multiple phase boss fight, and for each phase he transforms into a different form of himself as Genova's taken over his body. And once again, another bizarre encounter, and something resembling the Thing comes to mind when we battle him, and again in the remake in glorious HD. Maybe that one won't be for the younger audience, but I really hope they do it right. And then we have the ghost ship, just another random but spectacular enemy. Again, this came from the latter part of the adventure, I believe through the underwater sections, which would make sense. And I don't really remember seeing this in, some of the later Final Fantasies, like Final Fantasy XV, so we don't really have a good example as to how it might look. So I'm looking forward to seeing those types of strange enemies. And then, of course, we have the weapons, and I've shown an example here of Ruby Weapon, but all of the weapons, really, I'm looking forward to seeing them come to life in the HD remake, and I expect some quite substantially impressive boss fights from them, not just a single encounter with each, of course. In fact, even in the original against Ultimate Weapon, you don't just have a singular encounter. So I expect quite a spectacular event for each of these, and of course I expect Emerald and Ruby weapons to live up to the legacy that they left in the original game, to be somewhat more challenging than the others. And of course there's a whole load of other monsters and creatures that I'm even thinking of right now that I would love to see come to life in the remake. Much of which, though, unfortunately, I'm guessing we're not going to be seeing for some time, especially because the game is being split into various different releases. Some of these examples are going to be coming, I'd imagine, in the later projects rather than the earlier ones, so it's going to be a number of years before we really get to have a good look at them. But anyway, guys, please do share in the comments the types of enemies from Final Fantasy VII that you're looking forward to seeing in the HD remake. And also, if you've got any ideas for any new enemies that you think would fit the theme as well. But what do you think so far of what we have seen from the trailer? And are you happy with the approach that Square seems to be taking, which is to be faithful to the original? I suspect a lot of you are. Or would you prefer to see something a little more new and changed up from that game? Alright then, folks, well that's it for me for today, so thanks for stopping by and checking out the video. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, and please stay subscribed for more Final Fantasy VII Remake video content coming in the future. Goodbye.